Right, real quickly, I wanted to go over my inspect logic that I've been making for first person games and how to put it into your level. So, first thing we're going to start off is you have a scene and you're going to add in a puppet. Your own puppet could work. Um, you just need to have a first person puppet. I don't have one in this scene, so let's go ahead and drop one in. Doo-doo-doo. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and use a medium molecule one. Turn on guides when you drop them. Just make it a bit easier on yourself in the future. Alright. Place the puppet. Alright. Next up is an item. So let's go ahead and search for sculptures, and you can inspect pretty much anything. Let's go ahead and grab an apple. Alright, there we go. Apple. Turn off grid. It's really huge, so let's go ahead and make it smaller. Boom. Apple. So you got an apple there, and you have your puppet. Now we're going to start adding all the logics. So you're going to scope into your puppet until you can see his logic controller. Open it up, and you're basically going to have to find the controller sensor. So it's logic processing, controller logic, and there you have his controller sensor. So you're gonna, after that, you're gonna start adding in all the inspect logics. So we have a collection for the inspect logics. Open that up, and you're gonna find the puppet setup. We have the inspect puppet controller. This is the one you're gonna be adding to your actual puppet. Alright, so this is a disabler basically to disable your inputs after you selected a puppet. So this is for the X input, which is what I'm going to use to select the item, and go ahead and route that back to what it's supposed to be going to. Same thing for the left stick. It says left stick input, output to the correct spot. And finally right stick input, right stick output, follow that wire, and delete the wires in between it. Then finally you have a item selector disabler if you want to just disable more items or logics. I don't recommend disabling the controller sensor altogether because then you're going to stop possessing the puppet, and you don't generally want that. The last thing you're going to need to do for this inspect puppet controls is open it up and you'll find a tag. Go ahead and pull that tag out and place it where the puppet's head is at. Alright, turn on grid mode. I just do it to be safe. Select the tag and you're going to see its tag output. Just go ahead and grab that and place it inside of the puppet's head. It's going to give you the axis orientation, so that's your main goal there. So don't mess with it like that, because then it's going to change everything. So make sure you just grab only the tag and go ahead and drop it back into the logic board. Once it's in there, you'll see that it's still in the spot that you had it at before. That is it for the puppet logics. Once you've done with that, go ahead and close out all of those logics. Next, we're going to move on to the head and camera. So for the camera, you're going to have to turn off invisibility so you can see its logics, and open that up. You can go back into the inspect logic collection and find the camera controller, and just paste that right in there. Alright, so for this, all it is really a spotlight and a couple tags. So the camera position should be put inside of his head already, and then you have an item. This is where that item is going to float to when you're inspecting it. So let's go ahead and turn on grid and move it a little bit closer. Alright, that looks about good. Alright, once you have that all done, you're gonna do the final thing for the puppet, which is adding in the item selector. So all this is a basic sculpture, and it's used as a pointer. So you go ahead and plop that down, and you can make this yourself and adjust its length however you want it. The only things to note is make sure you name it item selector. Make sure you go to physical properties and you turn the invisibility off and collidable off. Finally, you're going to go to tags and mark it as a target. And that's all you really need to make it an item selector. Alright, once you're done with that, you can go ahead and scope out, and that's going to finish off your puppet. Alright, finally we're going to go into the items now. This portion is really not too difficult. You're going to go back into that inspect logics collection, find the item inspect logic, and paste that down onto your item. Open it up. You have a few different things here. So for settings, this is going to have a lot of the different settings that you can use. You can have an item spotlight. You can adjust its global settings or a lookout rotator. All these things you're going to have to adjust yourself a little bit and have a little bit of know-how. You're going to have to know which face you want, like which way you want it to face the camera, stuff like that. So right now by default we have them all pretty much off except for the 2-axis rotator, which allows you to spin the item. Alright, we'll go ahead and leave it like that. The one you do have to mess with a lot is the trigger. So the trigger area, you're just going to select that trigger zone and adjust it to where you want the actual trigger spot to be. You're going to pretty much engulf your item. So here we have the apple, and that's pretty good. Alright. Then we have a highlight object. So once you're looking at it, we want the item to be highlighted. So go ahead and open that up and adjust it with the keyframes until it starts to glow. Alright, that looks good. Alright, make sure you scope all the way out for this next keyframe. It's the return object. So all this is going to do is place the object back in the spot it was originally at. You don't have to do that if you don't want, but when you do it, make sure you have grid snap on and just tap it so it doesn't move. And that's all there is to it. Now you can close out all that, hit play, walk up to your item. Once you hover over it, it'll glow. Press X, it'll float to you, and you can rotate it. Press circle and it'll return back to the original spot. This also disables all my controls for the puppet, so I can't mess with it. The other thing is it's really easy to add it into other objects. So let's say we have this book, part of a group right now. Remove it from that group. Alright, now the book is by itself. So we'll go ahead and find that inspect item logic again and just place it down. Oop, don't scope in. Just place it down onto the book. It only adds 1% gameplay every inspect logic you do. Alright, so open up that controller and go into that trigger area. So we're going to adjust the trigger zone. Since it's a book, we want it to be a square zone. And we're going to move it until we get it into the right spot. That's not too bad. It doesn't have to be exact. Of course, you can make it as precise as you want. Alright, once that's done, highlight object, scope in till you can adjust brightness. It's too bright. There you go. Oh, forgot to edit the keyframe. And now I adjust it. Close out that keyframe. And then finally the return object. Turn on grid. Alright. And that's it. Picks up, moves to you. You can rotate it around. This one after you've installed this logic, you can use it on any item. You can also kind of adjust it to the way you want. If you want to not disable controls, you can just delete that. You can turn off return object on there so it won't pop back in a spot. Just real quick, this is not the best way to do it, but I'll show you really quick. Now I can move that object around. It's floating right now because it's not set to movable. Set it to movable. Boom. And you can do that with pretty much any item. Alright, thanks for watching. And before you go, I just want to show that two-axis rotator took me the longest to make because I had to put in a lot of calculations in order to get that done. A ton of logics. Alright, I hope this works in your game and we make some really awesome dreams.